The year was 1922. The air in the western desert of Egypt was a furnace, a shimmering, incandescent hammer that beat down on the khaki-clad figures of the Royal Survey Expedition. They were 100 miles southwest of anything that could be called civilization, tasked with mapping the shifting sands for the crown, charting the void for reasons of empire and mineral wealth that were never fully explained to the men on the ground. One of those men was Arthur Finch. He was not an archaeologist, not a historian. He was a surveyor, a man of numbers and lines, of theodolites and plumb bobs. His world was one of precise angles and irrefutable measurements, a reality etched in graphite on crisp, clean paper. On the 47th day of the expedition, Finch's reality began to dissolve. His team was taking readings from a series of unremarkable dunes when his assistant, a young man named Carter, called out. His voice was thin, swallowed by the immense silence of the desert. He was pointing at the ground, not at a rock, not at a piece of sun-bleached bone, but at a line. A perfectly straight, impossibly sharp line cutting through the sand and bedrock for a dozen yards before disappearing back under the dunes. It was wrong. Nature does not draw with a ruler. The desert, for all its stark beauty, is a realm of curves, of wind-scoured erosion and chaotic fracture. Finch knelt, his fingers tracing the edge. It was cool to the touch, impossibly cool in the blistering heat. It felt like polished obsidian, but the color was a flat, non-reflective black that seemed to drink the light. He ordered the men to dig. For 3 hours, they shoveled sand under that oppressive sun, their grunts and the scrape of steel the only sounds for 100 miles. What they uncovered was not the edge of a boulder. It was the corner of something manufactured. It was a single, monolithic block. The corner they exposed was a perfect 90-degree angle, its surfaces so flat that Finch's straight edge seemed to warp in comparison. There were no seams, no mortar, no tool marks. It was as if a giant piece of the sky, a section of pure, geometric void, had been planted in the earth. The expedition leader, a man named Wallace, a stout man of firm belief in the British way of things, dismissed it. A geological freak. A basaltic intrusion of unusual regularity. He ordered them to pack up and move on. The schedule, he reminded them, was paramount. But Finch could not let it go. That night, by the flickering light of a lantern, he returned to the site with Carter. They dug for another 2 hours, their movements frantic, conspiratorial. They cleared more of the surface, and they found the inscription. It was not hieroglyphics. It was not any language known to man. It was a series of interlocking geometric patterns, circles and lines etched into the surface with a precision that defied belief. The lines were finer than a human hair, yet they were deep, cut with a technology that left no burrs, no sign of abrasion. As Finch traced one of the symbols, he felt a strange vibration, a low, almost subaudible hum that seemed to resonate in the bones of his skull. Carter felt it too. They looked at each other, their faces pale in the lantern light, the same unspoken question in their eyes. What had they found? They never got to answer it. When they returned to camp, 2 new vehicles were there, parked beside Wallace's command tent. They were not expedition vehicles. They were unmarked, painted a drab olive green, and the men who stood beside them were not surveyors. They were quiet, severe-looking men in plain uniforms, men who watched Finch and Carter with an unnerving stillness. Wallace emerged from his tent, his face ashen. He refused to meet Finch's gaze. The next morning, the site was declared off-limits. A military cordon was established. Finch's notes, his sketches, his photographs of the inscription, they were all confiscated. He and his team were debriefed by one of the silent men, who informed them that they had stumbled upon an unexploded ordnance depot from a forgotten skirmish. The official report would reflect this. They were to never speak of what they had truly seen. Not the corner. Not the impossible coolness. Not the inscription that hummed. Carter tried to argue, to protest. He was taken aside. Finch never saw him again. He was told the young man had been transferred, a case of severe sunstroke. Arthur Finch returned to England a changed man. He completed his contract, his hands steady as he drew his maps, but his mind was elsewhere, lost in the desert, kneeling before a piece of geometry that had no right to exist. The official story was sealed. The expedition report mentioned a minor delay due to a false alarm regarding old munitions. The coordinates of the site were subtly altered in the final charts. The great, dark corner sleeping under the sand was erased from history. They buried it. They buried it under miles of red tape and layers of official lies. But here is what they do not want you to know. Here is the part of the story they could not erase, the part that survived in the margins, in the hushed whispers and the pages of a terrified man's private journal. The story of Arthur Finch's Corner is not an isolated incident. It is not a footnote in a forgotten survey mission. It is the first thread. And when you pull on that thread, the entire tapestry of accepted history begins to unravel. What if the official narrative is not just incomplete, but a deliberate and monumental deception? What if the greatest and most mysterious structures on our planet are not what we have been told they are? They tell you the Great Pyramid of Giza is a tomb, a monument of vanity for a pharaoh named Khufu. They tell you it was built with copper chisels and brute strength. They show you diagrams of wooden sleds and earthen ramps, asking you to believe that a Bronze Age culture, without the wheel, without steel, without even a single written plan, quarried, transported, and lifted millions of blocks of stone, some weighing up to 80 tons, and assembled them with a precision modern laser-guided technology can barely replicate. They tell you this with a straight face. They write it in textbooks. They build entire academic careers upon this foundation of sand. But they are lying. Welcome to the story they tried to erase. The story of what lies beneath the pyramids. The story of a lost technology so advanced it is indistinguishable from magic. The story of a global civilization that was not just buried by time, but deliberately hidden from its own descendants. Us. Arthur Finch kept a secret journal. It was his only solace, the one place he could record the truth without fear of the silent men in their drab uniforms. For years after his return from Egypt, he lived in quiet obscurity, working as a municipal draftsman in Leeds. But he was haunted. He spent his nights in libraries, poring over ancient texts, geological surveys, and obscure archaeological papers. He was looking for patterns, for other impossible corners, for other stories of suppressed discovery. He found them. In his journal, dated November 1934, he writes of a newspaper clipping he found, a small article from an 1885 edition of the American Antiquarian. It described the discovery by a farmer in a place called Miamisburg, Ohio, who, while digging a new well, struck a layer of perfectly smooth, impenetrable material 10 feet down. He tried dynamite. The material was not even scratched. The article treated it as a local curiosity, a geological anomaly. But one detail made Finch's hand tremble as he read it. A local academic who examined the exposed surface described it as feeling unnaturally cool to the touch, even on the hottest summer day. Another entry, from 1938. Finch describes a letter he received from a former colleague, a geologist named Evelyn Reed. Reed was one of the few people Finch had cautiously confided in. Intrigued, she had used her university connections to acquire mineral samples from the Giza Plateau, not from the pyramid itself, but from deep core drills conducted by a French engineering team in the 1920s. Her analysis was bewildering. The limestone bedrock beneath the pyramid was shot through with microscopic, metallic filaments. They were not natural. Furthermore, her seismic scans of the plateau revealed a massive anomaly, a void or structure of immense size and geometric regularity, extending thousands of feet down into the Earth's crust, directly beneath the pyramid complex. A structure that dwarfed the visible pyramid as a mountain dwarfs a pebble. Dr. Reed prepared to publish her findings. Her paper was accepted by a prestigious geological journal. 2 weeks before publication, she was visited by 2 gentlemen from the Foreign Office. They were polite. They were complimentary of her work. They explained that her findings, if published, could destabilize the delicate political situation in British-controlled Egypt. It was a matter of national security. Her paper was voluntarily withdrawn. Her research funding was cut. Her seismic data was classified and confiscated. When she protested, she was reminded that her academic tenure was subject to review. Evelyn Reed, one of the brightest geologists of her generation, spent the rest of her career teaching introductory classes to undergraduates. She never spoke of the Giza anomaly again. They silence the witnesses. They discredit the experts. They bury the evidence. This is the pattern. It is not random. It is a systematic, targeted, and ruthless campaign of suppression that has been ongoing for more than a century. Think about it. Why would a simple tomb require such a level of secrecy? Why would a primitive monument be protected by the national security apparatus of a global empire? What are they so afraid of us finding out? Let us look again at the Great Pyramid. The official story is that it is a tomb. Yet, when it was first unsealed in the 9th century by Caliph al-Ma'mun, it was found to be completely empty. There was no mummy. There were no treasures. There were no hieroglyphic inscriptions on the interior walls detailing the life and accomplishments of the pharaoh, a feature that is standard in every other Egyptian tomb. The one thing that connects the pyramid to Khufu is a single, crude cartouche found in a small, inaccessible chamber above the king's chamber, a piece of graffiti that many experts now believe was faked in the 19th century by explorer Howard Weiss to secure further funding. The entire premise of it being a tomb rests on a foundation of nothing. So, if it is not a tomb, what is it? The answer lies not in what is missing, but in what is there. The precision, the mathematical constants embedded in its dimensions. The pyramid's perimeter divided by twice its height equals pi to an accuracy of 6 decimal places. The ratio of its height to its base perimeter is the same as the ratio of the Earth's polar radius to its equatorial circumference. It is aligned to true north with an accuracy that we did not replicate until the late 20th century. Its construction materials are baffling. The so-called King's Chamber is built from massive blocks of Aswan granite, a stone rich in quartz crystal. This chamber is located at the precise geometric center of the pyramid's mass. The sarcophagus within it is cut from a single block of this granite. Its internal dimensions are exactly half its external dimensions, a key principle of resonance. When acoustically tested, the chamber and the sarcophagus resonate at a specific, low frequency, the same frequency as the resting heartbeat of the planet Earth. This is not a coincidence. This is not funerary architecture. This is engineering. This is the work of a civilization that understood physics, mathematics, and acoustics on a level we are only just beginning to grasp. They were not building a monument to a dead king. They were building a machine. So what was its purpose? And why is it connected to a much larger, impossibly deep structure buried beneath it? A structure that Evelyn Reed's seismic scans detected before she was silenced. This is where we must abandon the comfortable lies of the history books and entertain a new and revolutionary idea. This is where the grand unifying theory enters the picture. What if the pyramid is not the whole structure? What if what we call the Great Pyramid is merely the tip, the very top component of a colossal subterranean power station? Imagine a structure that plunges miles into the Earth's crust, a vast, technological complex designed to tap into the geothermal and electromagnetic energies of the planet itself. The deep foundation acts as a grounding mechanism, a conduit. The main body of the complex, buried beneath the sand and bedrock, is a series of resonant chambers and energy conduits, a power plant of unimaginable scale. And the part we see, the pyramid, is the final stage. It is the antenna, the focusing lens, the transmitter. Its specific shape, its precise alignment, its crystalline granite core, all of it designed to gather, amplify, and broadcast energy. It was not a tomb. It was a power station, part of a global wireless energy grid that powered a lost, worldwide civilization. The civilization that Arthur Finch stumbled upon when he found that impossible, humming corner in the desert. Now, let us re-examine the evidence through this new lens. The air shafts in the king's and queen's chambers, which point not at any significant stars as the Egyptologists claim, but are instead perfectly straight waveguides. The granite blocks, with their high quartz content, are not just for strength. They are piezoelectric, capable of converting mechanical stress, in this case, tectonic vibration and acoustic resonance, into electrical energy. The entire Giza Plateau is situated over a massive network of underground aquifers. The movement of water through the porous limestone bedrock creates a physical current, a phenomenon known as physioelectricity. The pyramid was designed to harness this. It was a multifaceted machine, drawing power from the earth, from water, from sound itself. The so-called sarcophagus? It was not for a body. It was the central resonant capacitor of the entire system. Chemical analysis of the interior has shown traces of zinc and hydrochloric acid, the basic components of a simple battery. It is believed that a powerful chemical reaction was initiated within it, creating a surge of hydrogen gas that filled the chamber, altering its acoustic properties and starting a chain reaction of vibration that would bring the entire plant online. The hum that Finch and Carter felt from that buried corner in the desert? It was the sound of dormant machinery, the faint, residual energy of a system that has been sleeping for millennia. Who is the antagonist in this story? Who is the institution so desperate to keep this truth from us? It is not one group. It is a consortium, a loose but powerful alliance of academic institutions, government agencies, and elite societies who have built their power on the current, flawed model of history. The Smithsonian Institution in the United States, the British Museum in London, the Cairo Commission for Antiquities in Egypt. They are the gatekeepers. They control the funding for excavations, the publication of papers, the narrative taught in our schools. Their power is derived from their status as the sole arbiters of the past. To admit the existence of a highly advanced, global, prehistoric civilization would be to admit that their entire intellectual edifice is a fraud. It would mean that human history is not a simple, linear progression from primitive cave dwellers to us, the enlightened moderns. It would mean that we are a civilization with amnesia, that we are the survivors of a great catastrophe, living amongst the ruins of a world far more advanced than our own, a world whose technology we no longer understand. This is the truth they cannot allow to surface. There are modern seekers, of course, independent researchers, rogue archaeologists, and engineers who have been piecing together this puzzle for decades, operating outside the corrupted mainstream. Men like Julian Croft, whose exhaustive, self-published work, The Etheric Grid, compiles hundreds of cases of suppressed evidence, from Finch's journal to declassified Russian satellite imagery. Croft's work shows how the energy signatures emanating from the Giza Plateau match, with uncanny precision, the signatures detected over other anomalous sites around the globe. He is ridiculed by the establishment. They call him a fantasist, a charlatan. But they never, ever attempt to refute his data. They simply ignore it. They know they cannot win an argument based on facts. Because this phenomenon is not limited to Egypt. This is the key. The Giza complex is not unique. It is merely the most famous and best preserved example of a global system. Let us travel now, from the sands of Egypt to the green hills of Bosnia. Near the town of Visoko, there is a series of hills, perfectly pyramidal in shape. For centuries, they were considered natural formations. The largest is called Visosika Hill. Mainstream geology and archaeology insist it is nothing more than a flatiron, a product of natural erosion. They are lying. In 2005, a researcher named Samir Osmanagic began to investigate. He noticed the hill's precise cardinal alignment, their geometrically perfect slopes. He began to excavate. And what did he find? He found that the hills were coated in a layer of soil and vegetation, but beneath it lay a structure made of colossal, rectangular blocks of concrete. Not modern concrete. A form of ancient concrete, superior in quality and hardness to anything we can produce today. The blocks were fitted together with a precision that left no gaps. The scientific establishment immediately launched a campaign of ridicule and condemnation. European archaeological associations signed petitions to halt the excavations. The government was pressured to revoke Osmanagic's permits. They said he was damaging a natural medieval site, but the work continued. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a vast network of tunnels and chambers inside the pyramid. These tunnels were not random caves. They were a deliberate labyrinth, with ventilation shafts and intersections at perfect right angles. Within these tunnels, strange, carved monoliths were found, covered in a runic script that has yet to be deciphered. And the energy readings. An energy beam, electromagnetic in nature, with a radius of 4.5 meters and a frequency of 28 kilohertz, was detected emanating from the very peak of the Pyramid of the Sun. The beam is continuous and grows stronger as it moves away from the pyramid. This is not a natural phenomenon. This is the signature of a power source, a machine. Just like in Giza, the Bosnian pyramid is not a tomb. It is another node in the ancient global energy grid. Another power station, buried not by sand, but by soil and time. The pattern repeats. Let us go to China, to the Shaanxi province. Here, amidst the farmland, stand dozens of massive, flat-topped pyramids. For decades, the Chinese government denied their existence. Photographs were forbidden. The areas were restricted military zones. The official explanation was that they were burial mounds for early Han Dynasty emperors. But the scale is all wrong. The largest, the so-called White Pyramid, is estimated to be nearly 1,000 feet tall, almost twice the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Pilots who flew over the region in the 1940s described seeing a colossal structure capped with a jewel-like material. Local legends speak not of tombs, but of ancient skyships that used the pyramids as navigational beacons and refueling stations. The Chinese government has since planted the pyramids with fast-growing conifers, attempting to disguise them as natural hills to erase them from the landscape. Why? Why would you hide a monument to your own ancestors? Unless, of course, they are not tombs. Unless they are something else. Something whose technological implications are too revolutionary, too paradigm-shifting for any modern government to handle. Egypt, Bosnia, China. The pattern is global, but it goes further. There are submerged pyramidal structures off the coast of Japan, near Yonaguni. There are pyramids hidden in the jungles of the Amazon. And perhaps most disturbingly, there is evidence of them in the most remote place on Earth, Antarctica. Declassified satellite imagery and reports from naval expeditions in the 1940s and 50s speak of strange magnetic anomalies and radar-reflecting, geometric shapes buried under miles of ice. In 2016, a series of images from NASA's IceBridge mission, designed to map the subglacial topography of Antarctica, revealed what appears to be a perfect, four-sided pyramid in the Ellsworth mountain range. The official explanation? A nunatak, a mountain peak whose pyramidal shape is a coincidence of glacial erosion. A coincidence. The same explanation they use in Bosnia. The same dismissal they use for every piece of evidence that contradicts their fragile narrative. How many coincidences does it take before it becomes a pattern? How many identical anomalies spread across every continent on the globe, all exhibiting strange energy signatures, all built with impossible precision, all suppressed by official sources, does it take before you realize you are being lied to on a planetary scale? This was a global civilization, unified, technologically sophisticated, and it was wiped out by a catastrophe of almost unimaginable proportions. A reset, event that shattered their world and buried it. The nature of this event is the final piece of the puzzle. Some researchers believe it was a pole shift, a sudden reorientation of the Earth's crust that caused worldwide earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic activity. Others point to evidence of a massive cosmic impact or an atmospheric plasma event. Julian Croft, the modern seeker, posits a more unsettling theory. He believes the power grid itself became unstable, that a cascading resonance failure, a feedback loop in the planetary energy system, caused a massive release of energy that literally liquefied the ground in many parts of the world. A mud flood of epic proportions, not of water, but of semi-solid earth, burying cities and structures under hundreds, sometimes thousands, of feet of soil and rock in a matter of days. This would explain why these colossal power stations are so deeply buried. It would explain the thick layer of soil covering the Bosnian pyramids. It would explain the legends of a worldwide flood that exist in almost every ancient culture. It was not a flood of water. It was a flood of earth, a technological cataclysm that ended a golden age. And now we can understand the motive for the suppression. It is not just about protecting academic dogma. It is about something far more profound. If this technology, this system of drawing limitless, free energy from the planet itself, were to be rediscovered, it would shatter the foundations of our modern world. Our entire global economy is based on scarcity. It is based on the extraction and sale of fossil fuels. It is based on the control of energy resources. What would happen to the oil conglomerates, the national power grids, the entire banking system that finances it all, if a technology was unearthed that provided clean, free, and abundant energy to everyone on Earth? It would be the end of their world, the end of their control. They are not protecting history. They are protecting their power. The suppression is not academic. It is economic. It is the most important and ruthless act of industrial sabotage in human history. They are keeping humanity in a state of arrested development, tethered to polluting and inefficient energy sources, just to maintain a system of control that benefits a tiny elite. The truth of the pyramids is the key to a new future, and they know it. That is why Finch's discovery was classified. That is why Dr. Reed's career was destroyed. That is why the Bosnian site is ridiculed and the Chinese pyramids are hidden under trees. They are sitting on the greatest secret in human history, the secret of our own past, and the key to our own liberation. Let us return to Arthur Finch. His journal does not end with his discoveries in libraries. It ends with a final, chilling entry, written in 1956, just weeks before his death from a sudden and aggressive form of cancer. He had spent the last years of his life trying to find the location of his 1922 discovery on modern maps. But the landscape had been altered. The coordinates in his memory did not match the official charts. He believed the authorities had not just covered up the site, they had physically buried it even deeper, using military-grade earth movers to heap entire dunes over it, to erase it from geography itself. But in his final entry, he writes of a breakthrough. A contact, an old friend from his expedition days who now worked in the Ministry of Defense, had smuggled him a single, classified aerial reconnaissance photograph of that sector of the Western Desert, taken with a new, high-altitude camera. The photograph was grainy, but it showed something that made Finch's blood run cold. At the approximate location of his discovery, the photo showed not a dune, but a faint, hexagonal pattern on the sand, hundreds of yards across, visible only from the air. It was a pattern formed by subtle variations in heat and moisture, suggesting a massive, geometric structure lay just beneath the surface. And in the center of that hexagon was a dark, circular patch. His contact had provided an analyst's note. The patch was the result of intense, localized magnetic interference, strong enough to disrupt the aircraft's navigational equipment. Finch's final, trembling words in his journal are a testament to the awe and terror of his lifelong secret. He wrote, "It is not just a corner. It is a keyhole, and it is not sleeping. It is waiting. The truth does not stay buried forever. The sand shifts. The ice melts. The lies of one generation become the research projects of the next. The hum that Arthur Finch felt in the bones of his skull is still there. The energy beam rising from the Bosnian pyramid is still being broadcast into space. The magnetic anomalies under the Antarctic ice are growing stronger. What we call pyramids are not tombs for the dead. They are engines of life, waiting for a lost civilization's descendants to remember how to turn the key. The evidence is not hidden in some secret vault. It is right in front of us, masquerading as hills, hiding under the sea, disguised as the most famous tourist attractions on the planet. They built everything. We built nothing. The official story of our past is a cage. It is time to see the bars. It is time to remember who we are and what we have forgotten. The pyramids are not the end of the story. They are the beginning. They are a message in a bottle, a technological legacy left for us by a brilliant and forgotten people. A people who understood the harmony of the universe, who could build with geometry and sound, and who powered their world with the music of the earth itself. The suppression cannot last. In the age of the internet, of satellite imagery available to the public, of open-source information, their control is slipping. Every year, a new anomaly is found. A new independent researcher connects another dot. A new witness comes forward with a story their grandfather told them, a story about a strange discovery that was quickly covered up by men in dark suits. The chorus of truth is growing from a whisper to a roar. Think of the implications. A world with free energy would be a world without poverty, a world without pollution, a world where the artificial boundaries of nations, fighting over scarce resources, would become meaningless. This is the future they are stealing from us. Every single day that they perpetuate the lie, they have taught us to see ourselves as small, as primitive creatures who only recently crawled out of the mud. They have given us a history of war, of struggle, of constant, bloody progress. But our true history is one of splendor, of peace, of a symbiotic relationship with our planet. We have been lied to about our origins so that we can be controlled in our present. The Giza power plant, the Bosnian energy emitter, the Chinese frequency beacons, they are our inheritance. The greatest secret they keep is not what the pyramids are, but what they represent. the limitless potential of the human race. Look again at the old photographs of the Giza Plateau from the 19th century. You will see the pyramids buried up to a third of their height in sand. The official story is that the sand accumulated over thousands of years. But what if it is not sand? What if it is the sediment from the Great Cataclysm, the mud flood that buried their world? What if the excavators of the last 2 centuries have only cleared away the very top layer of this cataclysmic deposit, revealing only the peaks of these colossal machines? This changes everything. The Sphinx, for example. Geologists have long pointed out that the erosion on its body is not from wind and sand, but from massive amounts of water, suggesting it is thousands of years older than the pyramids, perhaps tens of thousands of years older. But what if it is not older? What if it was simply buried to a different depth in the same event? What if the entire Giza complex and the vast, technological city that must have surrounded it is still there, thousands of feet beneath the sand, perfectly preserved, waiting? The anomalies are not just in the stones, but in the accounts of those who first explored them. Early reports from inside the Great Pyramid speak of strange electrical effects. Compasses would spin wildly. Lanterns would extinguish for no reason. Visitors would experience a strange tingling sensation on their skin, the effects of a powerful ionizing field. These reports are dismissed today as fanciful exaggerations, the product of superstitious minds. But what if they were accurate descriptions of a dormant, but not dead, piece of technology? What if the machine is still cycling, still drawing a trickle of power, humming its low, telluric song? Let us consider the materials again, with this new perspective. The interior passages are lined with limestone, an insulator. The main chamber is built of granite, a crystalline conductor. The entire structure is a massive, solid-state electronic component. The very rock it is made from was chosen for its electrical properties. They were not just cutting stones. They were building a circuit board the size of a mountain. And the shafts, the mysterious star shafts that point to empty sky. Robert Bauval's Orion correlation theory was a step in the right direction, recognizing that the layout of the Giza pyramids matched the stars in Orion's belt. But he made a fundamental error. He assumed the builders were primitive star worshippers, building a map on the ground. He failed to ask the next, more logical question for an engineer. Why? What if the correlation is not symbolic, but functional? What if the Giza complex was energetically linked to a specific star system? What if it was not just a power station for Earth, but part of an interstellar communications array or a transportation system? This sounds like science fiction until you remember the energy beam is shooting out of the Bosnian pyramid, a focused, modulated signal aimed at the cosmos. Who were they talking to? Or were they listening for a signal themselves? A signal to tell them it was safe to come back. The suppression of this truth has been violent. It is not just about ruined careers. Researchers who got too close to the truth have died in mysterious accidents. Their archives have been lost in fires. John Botsworth, an acoustic engineer who in the 1970s conducted groundbreaking experiments on the resonant frequencies of the King's Chamber, documenting its powerful psychoactive effects, died in a car crash just before he was due to present his findings at a conference. His notes and tapes vanished. The official cause of the crash was brake failure. The list goes on. It is a quiet, undeclared war being waged in the shadows, a war for control of the human story. The institution, this faceless antagonist, is not a caricature. It is a real and present force. It operates through cutouts, through quiet phone calls, through friendly advice from government officials. It offers research grants to those who toe the line and professional oblivion to those who dare to cross it. It has mastered the art of character assassination, branding any dissenter as a crank, a pseudoscientist, ensuring that their work is never seen by the public or discussed in the halls of academia. But the physical evidence is too vast to hide completely. The Bosnian pyramids are still there. The Chinese pyramids can be seen from space. The energy readings are real and can be verified by anyone with the right equipment. The mathematical constants embedded in the Great Pyramid's design are undeniable. The institution's only remaining weapon is ridicule. They cannot win on the evidence, so they attack the messenger. They rely on the intellectual laziness of the mainstream, the desire of most people to believe the simple, comfortable story they were taught in school. Do not be one of them. Question everything. Look at the world with new eyes. When you see a strange, conical hill, ask yourself, is it really a hill? When you read about an ancient monument, ask yourself, what was its function? Not its symbolism, its function. We must learn to think like the engineers who built this world, not like the priests and historians who have misinterpreted it. The final, desperate act of the suppressors is to co-opt the mystery. They will now admit that perhaps the pyramids are a little older than we thought. They will concede that maybe their construction methods were more ingenious than previously understood. They will create a limited hangout, a small, controlled release of information to placate the curious, to make it seem like they are engaged in open inquiry. They will admit a few small mysteries to protect the one, monumental lie, the lie about the technology. They will never, ever admit that these structures are machines, because that is the admission that changes the world. Let us go back to that underground network in Bosnia. The labyrinth. The air within those tunnels has been analyzed. It is remarkably clean, with a concentration of negative ions that is orders of magnitude higher than the air outside. This has a profound healing effect on the human body. People who spend time in the tunnels report the alleviation of chronic respiratory and circulatory ailments. This is not a tomb. It is not a mine. It is a therapeutic facility, a place of healing, powered by the energies of the pyramid above it. The builders of this lost world were not just masters of energy. They were masters of biology, of health. They had integrated their technology with the well-being of the population. Compare that to our world. A world of chronic illness, of pharmaceutical dependency, of a medical system that treats symptoms instead of causes. We are living in the dark ages, and we do not even know it. We are sick, tired, and divided, burning the fossilized remains of our planet to power a system that is killing us, all while sleeping on top of a dormant technology that could provide clean air, clean water, and vibrant health for everyone. The scale of the deception is breathtaking. The crime against humanity is so vast, it is almost impossible to comprehend. They have stolen our past, our future, and our health. They have left us adrift in a cosmos they tell us is empty and meaningless, while they hide the evidence that we were once part of something grand and interstellar. Arthur Finch died thinking he had only found a keyhole, but he had found so much more. He had found the loose thread that, when pulled, unravels the entire prison. The work of men like Julian Croft, of Samir Osmanagic, and the countless other independent researchers who are demonized by the establishment is the continuation of Finch's lonely quest. They are pulling the thread, foot by foot, and the fabric of lies is tearing. The final philosophical question is this: why now? Why is this information coming to the surface now, after centuries, perhaps millennia, of suppression? Perhaps the cycle is ending. Perhaps the great machine is beginning to stir from its long slumber. The increasing energy readings, the growing magnetic anomalies, perhaps these are signs that the planetary grid is beginning to reactivate. Perhaps the cataclysm that buried it is finally passing, and the Earth's own frequencies are returning to a state of harmony that will bring these ancient power stations back online. If that is true, then the suppression is not just about maintaining the status quo. It is a frantic, last-ditch effort to keep humanity from reclaiming its inheritance before the system fully reboots. A race against time, the most important race in human history. We stand at a precipice. Behind us lies the comfortable, familiar world of the official narrative, a world of false limitations and manufactured history. Before us lies a new paradigm, a future of limitless potential based on the rediscovery of a lost science. The path forward is to reject the gatekeepers, to embrace the anomalies, and to listen to the quiet hum of the sleeping giants beneath our feet. The pyramids are not what you think they are. They are not even the beginning of the story. They are merely the exposed peaks of a buried world, a world whose secrets will redefine what it means to be human. They are a promise, etched in stone and energy, that the age of lies is coming to an end. The truth is not out there. It's right here, under our feet. They say the truth will set you free. But first, it will make you question everything you have ever been taught. The evidence is clear. The pattern is undeniable. The motive is transparent. There are no pyramids. What you are looking at are the tops of buried power stations. And they are waking up.